Hey, I'm Colin from Blackjack Apprenticeship, and in this video, I'm going to share 3 things you will need to do to be able to handle your emotions as an advantage player at the tables. I got an email recently from someone, let's call him John, and this is what he says in his email. I really need some advice. It's my competitive nature that I learned from playing sports my whole life. I was brought up to train hard, do my best to win, and I think this causes me to get upset emotionally when I lose at blackjack. I mentally understand variance and the swings in the game, but emotionally it still gets to me inside. I tell myself that I'm not going to get upset, but when I go on a bad losing streak, I do my best to control it, but sometimes it gets the best of me. I want to overcome this issue. I want to become an even keel, calm, cool, collected, emotionless player that can win $200 or $300 consistently, nothing big. Do you have any smart strategies that I can put in place that may help me overcome this emotional issue that takes over me when I go on a bad losing streak? One thing I use to help control my emotions, if I lose 3 hands in a row, I automatically get out of the shoe and wait for the next one. That does seem to help me. Let's get into 3 things that I think you're going to need to know to be able to handle your emotions in the casino. Number 3 is understanding what card counting is and what it isn't. Card counting is not a way to win every time you go to the casino. I can promise you, even the best card counters in the world are going to have losing days, weeks, and even months. Now, I've shown this image before, but look at this graph of 5 different professional card counters' careers over the course of 1,000 hours. Now, you see that the math absolutely works out in our favor, and each of these players has made 6 or even 7 figures as a card counter, but look at how many losing sessions each person has had. Look at some of these streaks of 100 hours or more between their all-time highs. This is what you're signing up for as a card counter. You are going to get the casino's money in the end, but you're going to have all sorts of wins and losses in the meantime. The second thing you need to know if you want to handle your emotions as an advantage player is to realize that if you deviate from your playing strategy, you are just sabotaging yourself. The math behind card counting is based on perfect play, perfect basic strategy, perfect counting, perfect betting, perfect deviations 100% of the time. It's assuming that you're playing like a computer. That's why we train so hard at it. Now, if you deviate from the way that you're playing and just do something else because you're losing, you are sabotaging your profits. So what does this mean for John? Well, he says that if he loses 3 hands in a row, he's gonna walk away from the table. Did you know that you lose 3 hands in a row 15% of the time? That means 1 out of every 7 shoes, he's walking away regardless of the count just because he's lost a few hands. Best case scenario, he's made the deck penetration of the game much worse by walking away from 1 in every 7 shoes. Worst case scenario, he's walking away from positive counts just because he's lost a few hands. Now, I always tell this story at boot camps that comes from one of the first boot camps I ever ran, and I was, giving some sort of talk, and a guy interrupts me right in the middle of me talking. He says, "Hold on, Colin, I gotta ask you this. Now, if you're playing at a table and you lose 3 hands in a row, do you stay at that table?" And I said, "Well, what's the rank count? Is it positive?" And he said, "Yeah, it's a positive true count." And I said, "Well, yeah, I'm going to stay at the table." He said, "But hold on, Colin. What if you lose 10 hands in a row? Are you going to walk away from that table?" And I said, "Is it still a positive true count?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, no, I'm going to keep playing." He said, "But hold on, Colin. What if you lose 20 hands in a row? Are you going to stay at that table?" And I said, "Is it still a positive true count?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Then I'm going to keep playing that table because I'm not worried about short-term streaks. I play the odds. And if it's a positive true count, it doesn't matter if you lost the last hand, 10 hands, 20 hands in a row. The cards don't know if you won or lost the last hand. All the cards know is if you have the advantage or not. And we play, when we have the advantage, we bet more. When we have the disadvantage, we bet less or we leave that table." If I were a little less lazy, I would run a simulation for you guys showing what the math is if you lose 3 hands in a row, but just trust me, it's no bueno. That brings us to the number 1 thing you need to consider if you want to be a disciplined investor at the blackjack tables, and that is whether you have what it takes to be a card counter. Now, the vast majority of people that I've talked to think that the biggest barrier to becoming a card counter is IQ. Are you smart enough to learn basic strategy, run and count? You know what? You can train a lot of people how to do that stuff. What I've found to be a bigger indicator is if you have the emotional intelligence to handle the swings of the game, the backoffs, all that stuff. I've talked about this stuff plenty of times before. And what's really interesting is I just read a book written by a friend of mine, John Collins, and his wife. Now, John Collins, for those who don't know, he played on the church team back in the day, but he also was one of the 3 founding partners that started Blackjack Apprenticeship. I don't know if he wants me sharing that with people, but he helped start Blackjack Apprenticeship back in the day. He's played high stakes blackjack, and he's done other startups since then. But he and his wife wrote this book, and in it, they state that emotional intelligence, or EQ, is a greater predictor of success than IQ. And I would say that that's absolutely true. Now, don't get me wrong, there's definitely a minimum barrier needed to become a card counter, to be able to do all the things at once and learn this skill. But usually that just takes a lot of practice. But you could practice all you want. If you cannot handle your emotions when you're losing or when the heat is on at the casino, you're not going to do it. Now, this channel is primarily dedicated to just the math and the tactical and the strategic sides behind beating casinos at blackjack. But since we're talking about handling emotions, here are a couple things you could consider. The first is make sure you're stopping to breathe. If you're at the table and you've just lost 5 hands in a row and you're freaking out, take some deep breaths, not some like shallow breaths, but some deep breaths. Secondly, if you put your palms up, you can do this under the table, but studies have been shown that when you put your palms up, it calms you down. So those are a couple little things you can do. You know what you can do at the end of the shoe? Take a break. It can be a break of 5 minutes or 5 hours or 5 days or 5 weeks. But if you can't control your emotions, you cannot be playing. We have to be robots at the table. If you're looking for card counting to be a way that you can bat 1,000, never have a losing day, this isn't going to work. If you're looking to have the advantage over the long haul with all sorts of wins and losses in the short term, card counting works. I've made hundreds of thousands of dollars at this. My teams have won millions, and I've got plenty of friends that are out there making 6 or 7 figures at blackjack, but you gotta control your emotions. If you want to learn more about beating blackjack as a card counter or advantage player, you can subscribe below. And to watch a video where me and a couple other 6 and 7 figure card counters talk about some of our biggest losses, you could check out that right here. And we've got a free card counting mini course that you could check out on blackjackapprenticeship.com, and that link is right there. We'll see you next time.